Hello my gorgeous beans and welcome back to the channel. They always say Rome wasn't built in a day, but this island will be, at least that's the goal. Now, I can hear you thinking, but Marcia, why do you do this to yourself again? And listen, I need to do something to graduate from clown school, and here we are. All jokes aside, it's March, the month that's named after the Roman god of war, Mars, who, according to myth, is the divine father to Remus and Romulus, and of the two brothers, it was Romulus who ended up founding Rome and the Roman kingdom. Of course, that is after some stabby disagreements with his brother where, Remus got the pointy end of the sword, if you know what I mean. But that's not where the Roman references of March end. You may or may not know that today, March 15th, is the Ides of March, a day dedicated to remembering Julius Caesar, specifically the day where the Roman general got publicly betrayed by 40 fellow senators and politicians, which as a result was the beginning of the Roman Empire. Naturally, being a history geek myself, I couldn't pass up on this opportunity to combine my passion for history and a love for Animal Crossing once again, so here we are, attempting to create an island inspired by ancient Rome in a day. Small disclaimer, completing this island start to finish in 24 hours is not the goal. The goal is to decorate this island, top to bottom, in 24 hours. So, this means the story is already done. I already flattened the island and rebuilt a majority of terraforming and had a couple villagers come and go at this point. But to start off, I Romanified my name, gave myself the birthday of Pompey's events, because why not, and named the island SPQR. I did my chores, had a dog sing me a lullaby, and had the Nook's debt collection at my door handing me a bill. And after that, you didn't really miss much, except for complete and utter nightmares. I autofilled all the required plots because I thought to myself, how bad can it really be? And the answer was bad. Very bad. So bad, I instantly regretted all of my decisions. The one redeeming factor was Fauna. She's a cutie pie, so maybe it will only go up from here. But I was wrong once again. Our static, unchangeable campsite villager was this thing. Listen, this island is supposed to be the Roman Empire, not a circus. Anyway, the following plots after that monstrosity, I wasn't taking any chances, so I grabbed Bea the Puppers and Amelia the Eagle from a no-no island. We got 3 stars, had a party, and from there I just started flattening the island. Bubbles wanted to move out, thank the gods, who got replaced by Julia, who is my reference to Juno. I used an amiibo for Roscoe and Celia on an empty plot, who are my references to Apollo and Jupiter. I had Sherb move in at some point, replacing Amelia, and saw Celia causing pure jealousy. A couple days later, Fauna wanted to move out, who I replaced with Fang as my reference to Romulus and Remus, and used another amiibo for Gala to finally get this ugly ass off the island. Yeah. And so, here we are. This is the current map of our set of villagers. The only 3 who still need to move out are Teddy, Renee, and Olaf. But we'll get to that while we're decorating. You may notice the terraforming right now is very minimal, and that's because I know I want to mimic buildings like this reference picture in several places, so I won't really know what terraforming needs to go where to accommodate the layering until I'm decorating the area. Which is also why this island 24-hour challenge is purely for decorating, since it requires a lot more finesse than the Halloween island, where we also took 24 hours. I could just dump flowers everywhere on that island, can't do that on this one. You may also have noticed that I'm already sending on some pathing. That is because I already did an itty bitty little bit of pathing in planning in 2 spots before I decided to make this another timed challenge. So here's the timer, but what I've done so far took roughly 2 hours, so let me just deduct that already. Nice. All I did so far was the pathing around the plaza and this corner here with the museum. But now, let's actually get started. First order of business was to move Celia's house onto the beach and adjust the cliffs over here. On these cliffs, the plans are to create a villa where my house will be, and I'm following a combination of these two references. I love the vibes, and I love the way it looks for this island. Most of this build I actually did live on stream right here on YouTube, and I actually really struggle with this. I had never done a structure build like facade like this before, so it was a lot of back and forth. A couple inclines later and moving my house next to the structure, I spent a lot of time figuring out how I wanted this pathing to look. Since I just really wasn't vibing with the marble I chose initially, but a little internal struggle later and discussion with the community, I decided to scrap the marble and went searching for a replacement. I ended up settling on this one, and after a little more work, I feel much better about this. It matches the cobblestones, it's a palace vibe, so we're rocking with this. By the end of the stream, this is what we ended up with. I adore this mosaic pattern and I love how it turned out so far. So at this point, I had about 20 hours left, which really isn't bad. But it did make me realize we might be in trouble since just this area has already been taking so long and it still isn't finished yet. We might be here for a while. Now, what's something else the Romans are known for? If it isn't their lavish baths. So naturally, I had to include one. I'm super excited to actually start decorating this area further, but this is where I ended for the day. There's still loads to do, so let's come back to this tomorrow. Actually, scratch that. Later that night, while trying to get some screenshots, Teddy wanted to move out, so I let him and I spent about an hour decorating the villa area. So I set my recording back up, adjusted the timer, and decided to bring in a reference to Pompeii. Oh yeah. Anyway, it's the next day and I started by adding some oxygen back to this island. Then the goal was to create stables / a farm around this area. I had this rough idea in my head with the structure, and the plan is to kind of hide the bottom horse head with some kind of table that's high enough, kind of like this. You know how I planted some trees of like different sizes? Yeah, I was supposed to stunt them and whoopsies. This is the setup I ended up going with, so I duplicated it and added a massive mud puddle as one has at the stables. I decided to move Kurtles here since he kind of comes off as a Roman farmer and these villagers need a spot to live at some point. I finished up the main pathing to this area, planted a couple bushes, and added some finishing touches. And the plans for this giant ass area is to create a fruit and vegetable farm. Soon. Not now. Soon. I added some terraforming to the top left corner of this island, placed an incline, and followed the same building vibe as the rest of the town. Nothing beats a day skip to head into gloomy, rainy weather. Nice. Julia got moved to this spot since I decided to create a small area for an oracle reference, and Julia seemed the most divine to me out of my villagers, so it was perfect. Some pathing, some decorating, and we have a nice cozy spot. I skipped the next day to get Julia moved in, and this spot looks much better when it's not raining. For 15 hours left, a lot has been accomplished already, and I'm super excited to see where it progresses. I love what we have so far, but there's still a lot to do, so I'm feeling pretty confident. See you tomorrow. We're back and I made about an hour of progress in handheld, so let's subscribe that from the timer there. During that time, I added a couple piggies to the farm, went to a no-no island, and pathed around this area. But now it was finally time to tackle another larger build right here in this corner. A Colosseum. For this, I'm using a lot of these loft beds, simple panels, and terraforming. This build is another prime example of why I couldn't do all the terraforming until I started decorating, since I'd have to build the cliffs and then use some of the actual items to ensure there's enough space and room for everything, which in this case there wasn't. But a little adjusting and it's starting to take shape. It took me a hot minute or hour to get the space how I wanted, so it looked somewhat like a semicircle. But this is how it ended up being and I like it. A couple columns and some details later and it definitely looks somewhat intimidating, which is exactly what a Colosseum is all about. It's getting late, so let's pick this back up tomorrow. It's tomorrow and as you can see, I once again did a little more work in handheld. Roughly 2 hours this time, so as per usual, let me reduce the timer. Poof. We are now officially over halfway done, and I am getting slightly nervous. But I'm also very excited. I do still fully believe I can do this, but whether I can get it all recorded in time was in the back of my mind. I really enjoyed building on this island so far, so let's continue. Just to quickly show you what I did, there's now a little ticket stand and a small stable for your horses when visiting the Colosseum, plus some other marble details, and I also added some clips here with Celia's house, since to me she kinda seems like a performer. I also laid down the groundwork for the fruit and veggie farm, so I think that's where we will continue right now. This farm is pretty straightforward with some veggies, some fruit trees, a little fencing, the last 2 villagers that I need to get off this island, being on a date. Cool. And moving my 1 pig villager to this area. I can't really make the pathing fit here, so I skipped a couple days to get her house just a couple feet back. Much better. I finished the pathing going all the way through the farm and up to the oracle. Woo! Progress is being made. I added some mud for a little outdoor kitchen area and annoyed Reese and Cyrus. I finished the kitchen, and from this build forward I really subconsciously embraced the no tile left behind movement, which inevitably was also the start of increasing lag on this island. For some reason, my brain did not allow me to just let grass be grass and decided every single tile needed some kind of custom design on it. Somebody take me to an intervention, please. I added a little picnic spot just outside the farm and skipped a couple days so I could stunt this tree and not forget about it this time. There we go. We're just under 9 hours, but the farm is fully finished. I adore how this turned out, but I love cute little farms in Animal Crossing, so I'm a little biased. There's a couple major projects left, such as the barracks somewhere, the campsite, and of course the plaza. Besides that, it's mainly filler and transition areas, but those are problems for future Mercia. Hi, it's future Mercia. And it's time to continue. This time I only planned out where I wanted the barracks to be, and that only took me like 10 minutes, so let's just reduce that time and work on this area. I knew I wanted Roscoe to live here, but I did not realize how massive the houses are in such a confined space. After seeing a couple different spots even outside the barracks, I ended up settling on this corner and skipping a day to make sure it's all in the right spots. A couple minutes later, I was happy with the pathing and I decorated to my little heart's content. And by the power of the Roman legionary and anime on my side, I love how this turned out. I quickly went into terraforming to make this cliff just 1 tile larger so I could fit a pergola on there. Beautiful. My lovely husband suggested to me that I should add a little spot for like a stonemason or a marble artist person. Sculptor, that's the word. I love that idea so much, and I think this little corner is perfect for it. I started with just a little rug and just absolutely loaded this small space with a variety of columns, sculptures, and statues. This little corner ended up being one of my favorite areas of this island. I just love it so much. That is where I ended for the day. We have a little over 7 hours left and I feel really confident. The island is starting to take shape really nicely and I'm super happy with what we've got so far. It's the next day and as you can see, the campsite finally has its permanent spot. I spent around 2 hours in a handheld while watching a movie working on this and some other details. So that leaves us with just a little over 5 hours. The clock is ticking down and I'll admit I'm starting to feel the pressure. I'm going so overboard with the patterns and the details in every area now that I have to keep the trend going for consistency, but boy, it's getting tough. This is what the campsite currently looks like. It's cozy, but nothing too extraordinary. Here is our current map though. We have all villagers except for our main man Klaus, who will be replacing Renee, but she does not want to move. However, I did get Olaf moved off finally by letting Celia move out, getting Jacob, and then recruiting Celia again through an amiibo. Is it a little backwards? Absolutely. Oh well. I also made a small start at the entrance, but that's about it. My goal right now is to work on this little island around Chirp's house, which I think is going to be like a little food and festival spot. So I'm thinking a little stall with some lush food, flowers, and a spot for musical wonders to carry the vibes. A couple details later, and bada bing, bada boom. Both the Romans and the Greeks love their festivals and theater, so it's a perfect addition. I added some pathing and details to the entrance, and I got so excited about this build that I completely forgot to click record again after stepping away for a second. So, here's what I did with the rest of the entrance. I roughly followed this reference and I absolutely love it. This is also the moment I started noticing some significant lag happening in some areas. And oh boy, spoiler alert, that's just gonna get worse. Listen, we're here for a good time, not a long time. I do love that the Valiant statue lines up perfectly with the doorway of the entrance like this. It's perfection. I skipped to the next day to make sure all these trees were growing in, and I just want to admire the lag here for a second as I walk back down. Sexy. The trees are all good though. I finished pathing around Jacob's house, and did you know that in my game he's actually called Jakey? There's like a couple villagers who have different names between the US and the UK copy, and it is so odd to me. Anyway, I turned the spot next to his house into a little relaxation spot following this reference as a small filler. Oh hi Jacob. I really can't get over how good this area looks. I'm super happy with what was achieved today. The time continues to tick down in the sub 5 numbers with less than 3.5 hours left. Every second counts. But let's come back tomorrow. For the first time, I didn't do much decorating in handheld, only about 25 minutes or so. But with that deduction, we have roughly 3 hours left. In that time, I did start on the plaza area. To me, it's nowhere near done yet, but it's a really great start, and you might think, but Mercia, this is already so great and looks finished. To which I say, okay, that's fine, but let's make it bigger. Listen, we all know I have problems at this point. I know. Did I just spend another hour adding more stuff and details to the plaza? Yes. Did it need it? Also yes. Did it make this area even more laggy? Yes. For the plaza, I just love how lush and lived in it looks. Every merchant has their own little stand. So as you can see, we have a map maker, an alchemist, a leather worker, a farmer, a baker, and a seamstress. I've hidden nooks and cranny and Able Sisters on inaccessible beaches since those buildings don't really work for this theme, but I once again love how this has turned out. I may have gone a little overboard, but I think it works. It's the next day, and as you can see, once again I did some work in handheld and put myself in a very tight spot. I spent roughly an hour and a half working on filler and transition areas, which has left me with only 30 minutes to work with. I'm definitely feeling nervous at this point since I know there's still some areas left completely barren. I finished the main plaza. Yes, I added more. No, I don't want to hear it. I love how it turned out, and no, Renee still hasn't moved out yet. I also finished the transition area coming from the plaza with just lots and lots of lush greens, trees, and some wells. I also completed this little town area and this little transition area with a little fishing spot. Super cute. Right now, my first order of business is this little filler behind Julia's house to change it from this to this. And I also finished right above the museum. I had to call myself out of a tight spot and change the secret tunnel, beach, from this to this. I was feeling great. I was feeling good. Just adding some plants here and there, and then there it was. The one area that I completely forgot existed. The hidden corner on the island, the volcano. Shit. I told myself I had 6 minutes. I can do this. Just load it on up with trees and call it a day. But I knew there was another whole area right next to the plaza that I hadn't done yet either. I tried. I really, really tried. But alas, midway through pathing, that clock was ticking down second by second, and I knew I simply could not do it. As the final seconds dropped down, I admitted defeat and time was up. The clock is at 0, and once again I could not complete a 24-hour challenge. I felt defeated and disappointed in myself for worrying about the little details so much. But then it made me think, and I had an idea. I was incredibly confident that what I had left to do, I could finish it if I just had another hour. One more hour. I was worried it would make you guys, the viewers, mad or disappointed, but I was not ready to give up. So I said fluff the sun and gave myself a 1 more hour to the day to complete what I had left and walk away satisfied. So I added another hour back to the clock, poured myself a fresh soda, and went back to work. For this, I just kind of filled it with random stuff. I still wasn't settled on whether I wanted to keep my Vesuvius reference as the erupted or non-erupted version, but I didn't really have the time to change that right now, so this is all I did. The other area I mentioned is right up here. This area I've had dedicated to be like a relaxing space with a bunch of couches, seats, and rugs, just like this spot here. I started with the cobblestone pathing leading all the way across. All of these little nooks and crannies got the same treatment of some pathing, some flowers, and some items such as barrels and columns, just to make my life easier. It's the kind of spots not many people will pay attention to, but I couldn't stand leaving them completely empty. I repeated the same thing over here and here. The same goes for these upper cliffs up here and up here. With about 5 minutes left, the upper level of the plaza was finished. Ain't it looking cozy? So I went laggily running around to see if I had missed anything else. And, of course, I did. It's okay. I have time. I can do this. I went into full panic focus mode, dropped columns, trees, and whatever else I had left in my inventory right up until the very last second. And there it was once again. The clock was at 0 and time was up. Well, there we go. We did it, sort of. This island is completely decorated top to bottom, nook to cranny. Once again, this island is inspired by Rome and the Roman Empire. Is it a one-on-one copy? No, of course not. But I do really love what this island has turned out to become. I had so much fun going back in time with this historical reference on such a historical day, albeit being a very stressful process. I made sure that I included the motherly statue because it is literally the she-wolf that is a direct reference to Remus and Romulus. So I just had to include it in the plaza. So for officiality's sake, did we meet the challenge? No. Technically not by an hour. But as the great Roman philosopher Kermit the Frog said, it is what it is. However, having been able to decorate this island in 25 hours is still an incredible feat, considering this island became an increasing ticking time bomb for my Switch the more I decorated. The only thing I did after the challenge was over was skip a month's worth of days to finally get Renee moved out and replaced by our Caesar, Klaus. My favorite areas for sure are the Colosseum, the Sculptor, the Plaza, and the area around my own house. Even the entrance to this island is fantastic. Did I go overboard with the details? Absolutely, but it was so worth it. This island is currently on my first ever Switch, so if you visit the Dream Address on a newer Switch or an OLED, it might not be that bad, but I do hope it doesn't refrain you all from visiting. The Dream Address code is on screen right now and will also be in the description. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think we did a damn good job. I hope you all enjoyed watching yet another time challenge island. I was super excited to create this island and I'm very proud of how it turned out. Thank you all so much for bearing with me while I sort out my shenanigans and the continued support you've all shown me on my previous videos. The next one might be a little calmer and less chaotic for my own sanity, but that will be arriving in a YouTube notification box near you soon. Thank you for watching and I will see you all in the next one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta do a thing.